I was reading something, I don't know, I came across something on the Parliament website, wherever, that speaks about a committee or a book, I didn't even know it's called MEMCOM book or something, that shows members in particular committees and when they joined. In 7 days exactly, on the 9th of July, will be 12 months since some of us were ATC'd as members of this committee. So we've been here for 12 months. I'm not sure if I want to celebrate it. I'm really not sure if I want to celebrate it, Honorable Vilakazi, because when I went through the strat plan and the APP and the work that has gone over the last 12 months, I wondered if anybody has been even listening, or are we having the same appreciation of challenges, or is everybody, I don't know which member said it, everybody just going off on their own vanity projects, deciding this and this. I've said, I think 3 times in this meeting, that this plan that is presented to us is supposed to be a visionary, ambitious, bold plan that is supposed to catapult South Africa into the digital age. And then I go back to it, outcome by outcome, impact statement by, and I'm saying, where is it? What is the big idea? And with your indulgence, members, I'm actually going to go through my notes exactly as they are. A number of the issues you have touched on, but I do want to know on this issue of job creation, 1,000 jobs. In Xhosa, they say, "Sise Pikomkhulu." What must we take to the great place? Because we don't know what you're saying. Firstly, you're going to create jobs. You're passionate about creating jobs. We ask you questions. You come back with an answer that says you will do it in partnership with the DTIC. You will monitor these activities through the implementation plan of the Digital Economy Master Plan. Then you come here, you're saying, no, you're not creating jobs. You are monitoring jobs. You are monitoring these jobs where? Where are you going to start monitoring? Where are these MOUs that you're talking about? Who has signed MOUs to date? How many jobs have been created? Do you think that, colleagues, you sit there in the places that you sit in with the sole intention of monitoring? You go, you promise the people of South Africa that there shall be inclusive economic growth, there shall be job creation. Then you come and tell us when we ask you, because had we not asked you, where are these jobs, you would have told us that you are creating 150,000 jobs. Now, you must be clear to us that we must go out to the people of South Africa and say, this government has no intention of creating jobs, they're going to be monitoring. Because if that is your role, as this department, which the DM always says is a critical enabler of economic growth, and you can't even tell us where you are creating jobs, so who's going to be creating the jobs? Similarly, you take the digital transformation roadmap. You were going to implement 100% of the targets. We asked you, what are the targets? How are you going to implementing it? Now you're coming back and you're monitoring. So who's going to implement that digital transformation roadmap? Because when you speak about it, you speak about the fact that you're going to focus on zero rating the gov.za website. You are the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies, and you locate yourselves within the broader 5-year strategy of government of digital transformation that when Indonesia is a zero rating websites. Who is going to implement the digital public infrastructure? I'm sure you already have an answer because Nina, you monitor. That's what you do, you monitor. Who's going to do the digital payment systems? I heard one day the DG saying, no, the financial services, we must speak to the banks. Why do we need you then, colleagues? What do you do? You are monitoring. So we must monitor your monitoring. Fine. The second thing I want to know, if you look at the top 5 challenges, I believe, and maybe let me agree that I'm subjective, that I believe the sector is confronting. It's legislative, policy, and regulatory reform. I went through your strat plan, your APP with hope. We sit here day after day, week after week, month after month, talking the same thing. Policy, regulatory, and legislative reform. You remove any little movement that was being made through the ECA. You remove anything called the Audio and Audiovisual Services Bill. Now you're talking about a framework. And then cherry on top, you're giving us a symposium. And we must sit here and we must clap for you. That the industry, which is decades behind, must now be so happy that in this financial year, you are promising us a symposium and a framework to discuss. What has not been discussed, colleagues, over the last 2 parliamentary terms where you got to an appreciation that there is a legislative challenge? I don't know. I have never heard anything in my life called a bill being in consultation with Cabinet. It's the response that we were given by the minister when we asked how far is the SABC bill. The SABC is bleeding and we're told the bill is in consultation with Cabinet. So who's consulting this bill then with Cabinet? That bill, by the way, is here in this parliament. It's 7 months down the line or more, no movement, no nothing. Then again, it doesn't even feature in your annual performance plan, amongst many other things that don't feature. They are very, very fantastical numbers that you are giving us. You say you intend to ensure 100% connectivity over 5 years. We then ask you, for those who want to follow what I'm saying, we then ask you in the questions. So what are the timelines for this 100% implementation, I think, around service obligations? No, 100%. 50% of the sites will be done by 31st of March 2025, which has passed. I can tell you now, you have not even done 1%. You then say 65% will be done by 31st of March 2026. So how did you even get to that 15%? Where did you get 50% from? How did you get to 65%? Then it reduces in 2027 to 60%. And then miraculously by 2028, it's 90% and then 100% by 2029. Please make it make sense. And this is what I feel is the problem. Colleagues, it's as if you just don't care. It's as if you just don't care. Just put it out there. We'll shut these politicians up. These politicians know themselves. They've been called these politicians a few times. Shut these politicians up. Just give them this thing that they're asking, and then they approve our documents. It cannot work like that, colleague. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I actually don't know what we are going to be saying we are approving here if we were to approve it, but I don't want to speak for everybody. Let me wrap up because I've got hundreds and hundreds of pages. I'll just ask you specific things on the document that you have presented. 20% implementation of DCDT digital transformation strategy has now dropped to 5%. In Q1 of 2025, you were going to appoint a service provider to review the strategy. So if you were still to appoint a service provider in Q1, how did you decide that you could only implement 20% or 5% of it? Because I'm assuming that there's no strategy to start with. So could we have clarity on that? You speak about all your international targets, 3 country positions, 4 country positions developed and approved, report of the G20 task force, 3 reports on DEWG. You have not even come back here to get agreements ratified. You have not given this parliament any reports on any of the international work that you're doing. We see you up and down, and then this is where you are telling us that you're going to, what you are going to do. Can you speak to us, and I'm not undermining country positions and reports, how are you taking forward these issues, especially where you signed MOUs to change the lives of the people for the better? Who is tracking them? At the beginning of this year, we asked you. Up until to date, we don't have a response. You hid behind us. You told us that we are not ratifying. There's nothing in this parliament that is waiting for ratification. I've asked you who's going to implement the digital economy master plan. The cost to communicate, you're saying, and I would forgive you if that even what your target indicator is was written by AI. You're going to reduce cost to communicate. How? How are you going to do it? How? Can we have a clear answer on the CETA regulations, how long they are in effect for? because I would assume that regulations are not meant to be permanent, especially when it seems that the department is not prepared to make the legislative changes that are required. And on that note, I want to find out why you would put in a whole 5-year strategic plan the recognizing of equity equivalent investment programs in the ICT sector. How is that a target? We have equity equivalent investment programs in the sector. Now you elevate this to the level of a 5-year target, then in your annual performance plan, you are going to be receiving applications from who? Who said that they want applications? And they are going to give you applications, and hence then you must have this as an annual target in your APP. Where does it come from? Because the annual target is received applications on equity equivalent investment programs. Who said they're bringing equity equivalent investment programs? I'm tired of all these monitoring things. I don't think I even want to speak to them anymore. Participation of women, youth, persons with abilities in procurement, SMME development, and employment equity. Your annual target, two monitoring reports. So whether those reports say they participate, they don't participate, it doesn't matter. You would have delivered 2 monitoring reports, and this is what we are supposed to say is correct. Your annual target on the DDM is implementation of the departmental and SOC priority projects. What projects? The DDM has been there at least for 5 years. Now you're still having stakeholder consultations. I think I want to stop here because I don't know. And can I just make the point that DG, I disagree with you. There's no problem of resources in this department. There's a problem of vision. There's a problem of leadership. Because we cannot keep hiding behind the fact that no, National Treasury did this. Honorable Felicia is right. We'll never get anything done. We'll never get anything done, and we must sit here every day and understand that National Treasury is not doing this or this. What then, Minister, is the leadership of the organization doing? Why are you there? Then let's just get National Treasury or anybody else who can't do anything with anything run the place. Thank you very much, Minister. Over to you.
Thanks very much, Chairperson. So I think in order to deal with everything in totality, I'll start and also invite the DM to start, and then there are very specific things at operational level that will then be able to direct. But perhaps to deal with the core issues, one starting just on a very, very short break. The issue of rationalization, Honorable Felicia, is to ensure that there are fewer but aligned on the same mandate in terms of the SOEs. There will still be SOEs. They are not being replaced by a private entity or what. So the merger between BBI and Centec, it's still going to be one entity, which is a state-owned entity. So it's not some coded effort to make privatization or not. It's about having leaner, aligned mandates of SOEs and making sure that the resources allocated to them. I think one member mentioned the issue around, duplications of leadership and that they are placed within the same framework. So what Honorable Bodlani was referring to about the DM knocking was our conversation that rationalization is not privatization, but it's basically consolidation of the state-owned enterprises. But then to go on the key issues, Chair, which if we are being honest, we take a lot of what the portfolio committee members raise, particularly on succinct, measurable outcomes. And it informed also the approach in the revision of some of these targets. And I know at the beginning the chair asked, in particular, from a funding perspective, what is the direct link to some of these? And there were also additional reasons, which I thought DDG Libagu dealt with, that we're also dealing with what Honorable Subrathi spoken to in terms of the process leading to the adoption of the MDTP, the revised role of each and every direct department in terms of what is directly responsible from ourselves in terms of doing. And the team will be able to elaborate in terms of, do you exist to monitor jobs or not? That isn't the case. in terms of the monitoring, because the chair asked where would the jobs come from, it is the jobs in the sector, right, that are created in the sector through the partners that we have in the sector, because the department directly on its own through its programs doesn't, let me be very careful about this so that I'm not understood. The responsibility of the job creation spills over from the enablers that the department then puts in place, and then what the entities do, and what the rest of the sector does. What I will admit, though, is that there is a weakness in, as two honourable members indicated, is the measurability of what our role in that becomes in doing that, and that is the positive takeaway that I would take in terms of what we then should be doing. And then to go back just in a fresh memory, because where you ended the chair, in terms of even with the issue of and listening to members of the portfolio committee saying this, there is a mistrust in the formulation of the targets and what they mean, and the approach in doing them in this way was not to evade any accountability or anything, but to clearly say, for things within our direct mandate, this is what our capabilities are doing. Hence, even in the risk, there's an identification of the skills deficiency that we have in terms of driving, the digital transformation and also the interventions that are then required on our end. And it's identified as a risk. That means that the approach, even in the staffing, in staffing the new structure of the department, the emphasis is on the technical expertise around one, the policy processes and also the digital economy expertise that will then empower us to be in a stronger position to do some of the intellectual work that is required in also informing the regulatory outcomes. And you ask, Honorable Chair, about who actually executes the digital transformation roadmap, right? Because we keep making reference to it and all of that. There is the establishment of the digital services. Is it digital services unit? Yeah, digital services unit that is placed in the presidency as part of the Operation Vulindlela, efforts in the state. That is being established to be the overseer and executor of the digital transformation roadmap, consolidating all the efforts across, the department, and our role is to be supportive of that enabling work. There is a broader debate to be had about its placement. That is, that is something that we are living with, and not be disruptive to that. And I can tell you, Chair, that there's been very difficult and uncomfortable conversation had, even in terms of would it make far much better sense if its placement was in the department or otherwise. That is not to distract from the work that is there. But in terms of the direct question around the linkage in terms of the execution, it is with the digital services regulations. And I'll go through them general in terms of the questions, and also to give the team the opportunity to respond. In terms of what you also said, Chair, in terms of, for instance, the 50% when it comes to the social obligations, which was the reference in there. You are absolutely right in terms of the 50% that should have been done by March, which was caused in large by the standoff that existed at a technical level between our department and the Department of Basic Education, which meant that from ICASA's perspective, that enforcement didn't happen. And I think it is also the subject of discussion in the joint committee meeting that is coming up on Friday, in terms of why we are there. And I think, therefore, your observation about the mere fact that if by March 2025 you had not reached 50%, therefore you are unlikely to get to 60%. That will take the point of the correction there. And then just two things which I think are at a policy level from what you said are critical is, and other members also said in terms of the CETA regulation. We said that they are not indefinite. that there will need to be an annual assessment of its impact to inform their status, and that commitment is still there. On the SABC bill, Chair, as I've said in engagements with the committee, the last engagement we had was with Cabinet on the SABC bill, and ultimately, I'm not beholden to this, the lack of movement on it. The ultimate guidance that we get from Cabinet on it will inform the next action, so that we move swiftly to deal with the issues that are standing in the way and are impacting the SABC. I think there's general consensus about what is the best instrument to put the SABC in the strongest possible position, and it also affects the issue of the Cabinet. Of the public mandate. Several members of the committee have spoken to the issue of the target removed on the ECA and also on the audiovisual white paper policy. And that's why at the beginning the DG mentioned that in terms of page 18, the reference to the framework is, that's where the change is in terms of the wording. It is a white paper. It's not a framework. So there is no deviation from going and approaching or reversing anything, Honorable Matava, that may have been done, previously. There isn't. And secondly, to speak to the issue of the target on the ECA, on several occasions and even throughout this journey, the point has been underscored, right, about what others call a wholesale review, or I think Honorable Subrath, in one of your statements that I read, you said revitalization of policy and regulatory element in the space. And it is some of the feedback that we have taken, some of which have been underscored in this portfolio, in saying rather than do a piecemeal approach in terms of amendments to policy, to the ECA, do a holistic relook of one, making sure that the policy is reflective, the policy environment is reflective of the evolved times that we are in. And this is where the proposal, the idea of also the policy colloquium comes into play in there as an inclusive process of that journey, because there is a recognition of that. And we say in the amendment in there that the two technical amendments that needs to be executed, one on the competition matters, the work is already underway, so that shouldn't be stopped, right? But then it's done as part of the whole revitalization review. I'm not too attached to what the exact language is, but it's about a wholesale approach. So, Honorable Matav, there is no, clandestine approach to stop stuff that was in the way, but it's like rather in taking the sentiment, which has also been repeated in here, do a wholesale thing on which the committee will also play a part in. I think on the impact of the delays, the team will be able to highlight those, and it is part of the risks that we highlighted in there, but also the mitigations, so that we are not overexposed in terms of the risks. There was sentiment around economic opportunities for women, youth, and people with disabilities. And Chair, you also mentioned that there was a target that was put there, particularly on the procurement element, in terms of for women, people with disabilities, that 40% of the procurement be targeted towards those. And Honorable, I keep calling it Honorable, DDG Libagu will elaborate on that.
Maybe it's coming.
Maybe it's coming indeed. And then I think the team will also respond with the issue of the reduction of the target, particularly the 20% to the 5%. I'll ask the team to come in there. Honorable Delisha, we've dealt with, and then on the zero rating, DG, I'll ask, as part of the work that is being done, particularly to reconcile with your question, Chair, in terms of who does the digital public identity and the digital payments, which is what part of the digital services unit is executing through the introduction of the MyMzansi ID. It encapsulates that, including the aggregation of all government services through the gov.za portal so that it is done there. But Digi will elaborate more in detail about that. And then, I think from my end, that deals with some of the broader issues, and then the team will deal with the technical elements that were raised. DM also, you will make your input now, and then we'll be able to complement each other also at the end. Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I think the Minister has made a concession with regard to the general document aligning with the results-based management science. Therefore, there's an acknowledgement in that regard. It's got serious weaknesses. Two, I think, Chair, you're asking a question of the focus. Maybe the point, Minister, is that is being raised, if I understood, is that irrespective of how much money you have, the smart way, how are you going to spend the little you have, needs to send a message that were you to get better money, you were to work differently. I think that's the question, that's a takeaway. But that one other thing, to me, maybe the Minister will remember I once raised this, is that, one of the critical issues maybe all of us needs to apply our minds to is what we call integrated, the phenomenon of integration. I just want to read the introduction on the Presidential Commission on the Fourth Industrial Revolution.
Does it still exist? We don't see it.
No, that's why I'm raising. I'm speaking about integration. What really worries me about this document was well researched, and it was a multi-stakeholder document across society, and its intention was to propose the country's overarching strategy. And a lot of proposals are done in the document. I've always asked myself a question that it's a matter that we need to discuss, that it's either we discard this document and move in the manner we do, or accept that will look better structured if we move on the basis of the existence of this document. Because why did it say overarching strategy for the Fourth Industrial Revolution? One of the key issues that the document raises is two issues which it came out with, which could be, which it says, after the entire analysis of everything, this country needs to deal with two issues: competitiveness and social well-being. Because this country is a small, open economy. In other words, the main value to its GDP does not come from within. It comes from outside. So for a small, open economy, its most critical approach is how competitive you are. Because the major markets are not within your country. You have to build. If you go to America, for instance, it's one of the leading countries in terms of having self-supportive economy. Usually one of my teachers would have said, if countries were to stop trading amongst one another, which country would live longer than the other? America was demonstrated as one of the countries that could live longer because it's about 40 or 50% market comes from within. So such countries do not have a huge, although things are different now. So a small open economy, its critical pillar is competitiveness and the human resource. Singapore will demonstrate that, Japan will demonstrate that, although now they have passed that, what you call. So the point I'm making is that on the integration, these are some of the things we need to talk about. Your national development plan, your this fourth industrial document, how do they inform our planning going forward? My last point is that, because Minister has covered a lot, my last point is that if you look at this document, the fourth industrial revolution, one of the critical things it does, it demonstrates an approach on, as a government, in skills development, how would the plans of the industry inform your interventions? Because if you go to different sectors, they will tell you, these are the digital skills we're looking to in the coming 4 years, in the coming 3 years, because they are formed by the evolution of competitiveness and so on. So I'm just saying maybe that's some of the things we need to talk about. The keyword to me is integration. Because to come with that focus, you need to have what? There's always a risk of coming with new things. And I want to argue that a lot of things that we keep on coming with, even the time I was a minister myself, I'm not blaming anyone. When we try to move away from this document, you go back to this document, 99% of the things you are doing, they have been answered in this document. Yours is to coin a strategy to implement these issues. So I align with the minister in terms of RMB, results management, RBM, results-based management approach. A lot of work needs to be done. Focus, a lot of network to be done. Minister has answered the issues of policy and the SABC bill. And I think all of us must be worried about where they are, those issues. Otherwise, the technical issues, I think DG and the team will actually deal with that. Thank you.
Internally, we've reached the conclusion that it's best to seek a non-litigious settlement on their approach, to the extent that the mandate to our legal representatives has been given to reach out to the broadcasters' legal representatives, and I think there was a date for mid-June that was agreed on those two terms to open at that level those engagements so that we can get to an out of court, and hopefully we can get there so that we all put what we are able to put on the table in terms of dealing with the issue of the consultative process, which is what the court was very clear in addressing, and also dealing with the current ongoing issue, which has its own risks, particularly to us, which is the ongoing registrations, which then kicks up the target and all those associated costs. So I thought that it's important that we deal with that one. The team should also deal with the question particularly around the post-business rescue lifespan. They'll know that we had advertised for the board for the post office, and that process is underway. The other note was around lifestyle audits, which I think the team would add. Honorable Vilagazi had an observation around corruption in middle management and the inferences there. So the DG will also deal with that. I thought that was important to underscore in giving direction on the responses. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. DG?
Maybe the little point. I'm sure DG will
We're allowing you to speak because we haven't seen you in meetings in a while.
Me?
Please proceed. Both of you, please proceed.
Shots fired.
Well, the chairperson is on form. I just wanted to say maybe DG, when she speaks on the capacity issue, she may also speak about her intervention on the EPMO, because it's also a critical intervention in dealing with these issues.
Yeah, DG, we want you to speak, answer as much as you can, as clearly as you can. But I know that I'm getting messages from members that they want to follow up. So please do manage your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I was actually also going to ask, Chair, that maybe, I don't know if there's going to be the sufficient time for us to submit some of these responses in writing. I know, Chair, yes, but we will respond.
Sorry, DG. I'm not undermining what you're saying. We are sitting with a problem where we're expected to approve this strat plan. And in our discussions with members, there are problems. You know, if you are going to respond to the questions, please give them to us today, because we need to interrogate this and see if we can find one another without wasting any time. And I'm sorry for wasting any time. I was saying to Honorable Matafa, you're having to pull me from rejecting strat plan to convince me to move to amend it. So there is nothing in my head that is we are at acceptance. So I implore you to take it with the urgency and the resolve that I think it requires. Thank you very much, DG.
And thank you, Chair. Maybe that's what I was also going to have a discussion, because I was reading in the questions being asked by honorable members, and all of them is there's a suggestion with regards to revision, Chair. So perhaps whilst we are going to submit as a department, we would also like to invite to say, can we also get suggested proposals in writing from the honorable members and the honorable House for us to also look at. And maybe then we can work in terms of timeframes to say we still submit our answers today. If we get those by Friday, we respond. I know it's Friday, and then we take it from there. But very quickly, on some of these, and I've got my colleagues here, it would be good to also hear and they can weigh in on some of these. On the issues related to, on the lifestyle audit, I'm just going to quickly touch randomly. We actually one of the department that has volunteered on issues of lifestyle audit. Currently, we do the declarations, financial declarations for senior management, and then also for middle management, focusing specifically on the functional areas which are critical, finance being one of those. And then over and above that, whilst the public service has not yet commenced on a mandatory lifestyle audit, we are one of those departments that has actually volunteered to participate in the lifestyle audit for that. But however, Honorable Vilagazi, and I think for transparency issues, currently there are certain investigations that are taking place in the department. None at the moment we can conclude it's the issues of corruption, but however, there has been one or two cited allegations with regards to that there could be some collusions taking place, but those matters are also being looked at. Other investigations, I just want to put it for the record, are purely issues of inefficiencies and matters obviously that were not followed due process and we're taking. And this therefore reflects the issues of us taking these matters seriously, and therefore consequence management post those reports would also be effected. With regards to the issues on job creation, perhaps if I can just come in on that. On job creation, yes, it is true. What we are doing in terms of the limitations, but I just want to indicate that one of our, whilst the department is not the main driver, but under the portfolio, we've got a number of government state-owned entities that actually do contribute. And obviously now this situation changes. So under the BBI Centec, the SA Connect, we actually empowered over 75 ISPs. Now, you would know that each SMME or ISP, you are basically employing 3 to 4 people. So you can calculate in terms of the numbers of that. And yes, I think there was a question that was being asked. I think it must have been Honorable Vilakazi or Honorable Botlat. This is also going to then have an adverse impact with regards to those jobs that we have created now that the funding for the SA Connect has been suspended. Again, under CETA as well as .ZEDNA, we were looking at creating email addresses for learners as well as websites. Again, there's another form, an initiative in terms of the job creation. Under SAPO, we have, and I'm now answering your question as well, Honorable Chair, we've got an agreement on the Take a Lot, and you're stealing thunder in terms of the budget vote speech, but we've got to Take a Lot agreement in place. We've made a mention of that. The agreement itself says that they will therefore onboard the previously retrenched SAPO members, and then on top of that, there's still an opportunity and allocation that is for recruitment of South African citizens in as far as then the delivery of parcels. The overall estimate from a Take a Lot perspective in terms of their business expansion is that they're looking to recruit up to 18,000 South Africans. So those are the numbers that we are also partly tracking when we talk about the number of the 20,000 jobs being created. We also then have on Collective X, we've signed an MOU with them. Collective X is basically training for onboarding as well in terms of the digital skills, and the target is for this financial year, it's 2,000 youngsters that we are also then going to be training for the onboarding of that. We have not yet concluded the agreement with AWS as well as NSFAS, but those are the ones that we are looking at in terms of the current discussions, and we are seeing that all of those numbers are actually going to leapfrog us to then the 20,000. To respond again further on this particular issue, I think on the jobs, honorable members, how do we break down the up to 150 over the 5-year period? As I said, so in terms of a breakdown for this year, our target is 20,000. Next year, we're targeting 40,000 jobs being created. 2027, 2028 is 50,000 jobs being created. And then in the latter year, we're breaking it down in terms of 30 and 30 in order for us to get to the 150,000 jobs. Then on the issue with regards to the digital transformation roadmap, answering also Honorable Dr. Gulishi, Gov.za is going to be zero rated, and it is part of the digital transformation roadmap. The question that was being asked to then say what exactly is our role with regards to the overall digital transformation roadmap. The minister has indicated that we are working with because this project has now been adopted under presidency as the president's Apex project. So we're working with with presidency as well as the National Treasury. Amongst the priorities within that is one, for example, looking at digital identity. Now, we all know that the mandate of person identification in the country resides with Home Affairs. It's not necessarily that Home Affairs is leading on this. Our role as a department is to ensure the interoperability of the systems as well as norms and standards, and also to safeguard on the issues of data. So we've got a data and cloud. So there are a number of enabler instruments that we're actually going to be as the DCDT ensuring during this process. And yes, we are working within the CETA system to make sure that interoperability and network of standards, along with other institutions within government, including of those would be CSIR. And then on the digital payment is being led by National Treasury as well as the South African Revenue SARS, as well as but it's all the entities under the National Treasury. And we, again, want to ensure then the interoperability of the systems there. There's also a pilot that we have now concluded to then say we're going to apply what is the MOSIP plan in as far as to ensure that all of this the network actually works well together. And then the onboarding, still under the digital transformation, onboarding of digital services. Honorable members, you would have then seen our report from the previous years to say, up until now, we have done 136 e-services online. And then we are now going to ramp up the rest of those services to then put them on the .gov.za systems in order to ensure the single view of the citizen perspective. So again, our work does not necessarily just rely in terms of the zero rating of sites, but we're also making sure the onboarding of those e-government services working with CETA. And then, as I indicated, that we would then monitor that as well as ensuring the zero rating. Perhaps then it is an issue of the detail behind the plan.